Welcome to the Taking the Lead podcast, where we empower people to be unstoppable. I'm Christina Hepner with my co-hosts Leslie Hoskins and Timothy Cuneo. So I'm not sure I'm ready for this beginning chat because we have a different guest for the beginning of this chat that I'm going to let Leslie introduce. I'm not sure I should have said yes to this.
I am so excited because obviously I am the number one fan here. But today with us, we have Johnny in studio here.
Wow. Yeah.
Can you believe it, Timothy? We are getting to the bottom of this.
Oh, finally, we're going to get the correct answers to our questions.
Well, correct by what terms? So if you've been following a few episodes ago, and this has been an ongoing debate for over a year now, the 5Ks that we do with Leader Dog, John and I always run, and it's always a debate of who wins.
It's really not a debate.
Yes, it is, because I actually win.
Well,
in your mind, you win.
All right. Well, okay, Johnny, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. We're delighted to have you.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes. So we had, most recently, we had the Bark and Brew 5K.
Yes.
Johnny, tell us what really happened.
Like usual, I won.
Yeah.
No.
See?
I guess we're done. That's it.
Not how it works.
Thanks for having me on.
So,
Thanks for coming on, Johnny.
so Leslie was not there during the 5K portion. She came later in the day. So I texted her our times. I got 29:47. Granted, neither of us are runners. We just do this for fun. So people probably run way faster than that. And Johnny got 34:42.
Okay,
It's
so
true.
real quick, that's right. That's great that you shared that.
Yeah.
There's a couple things I'd like to just point out to everybody listening. One, she has inside access. So she can get inside and change those times and manipulate the scoring or whatever it is. So that's one.
I
But
don't.
Johnny, can you also give us what were the guidelines, right? Of how do you win the race?
Well, here's the thing. Like, everybody knows Christine can run faster than I can. That's no debate. And she may have crossed the finish line first. Her time may have been better for crossing the 5K finish line. But Leslie is the true finish line. And we all know this. And it's been that way for the last 3 races. The first year, I saw Leslie first, so I won.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, this past January for the Frozen Paw
You
5K.
jumped in front of me.
Yeah, but that's
strategic. That's strategic.
And this
It's a race to
year,
Leslie.
Yeah.
I used the restroom and he ran in.
No, this is my favorite part of the whole story,
this-
Timothy.
yeah.
So, Timothy, I get to Bark and Brew around, 3:30 or so. I get there, and I had just kind of walked in, hadn't even made it anywhere. And all of a sudden, Johnny comes running up to me. He's like, "Hey, have you seen Christina yet?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "Yes, that means I win."
Yeah, that's it.
And I was
3 for
like,
3.
"It's so good to see you." He's like, "Oh, yeah, hi." But I was like, "This is fantastic." So Donnie was right there with me. There were witnesses.
But-
Johnny won.
Yep,
You know
that's the
what?
truth.
Email in and let us know who you think the true winner is, because I think it's me.
I also, just so everybody knows, I think we should clip in part of the past episode where it says the guidelines that you have to see me first. But if that doesn't happen, it's because Christina didn't want to do it because I
That's
don't know
right.
how to do
that
it.
episode. I remember that episode.
I don't remember that episode.
Okay.
So, like,
Nor does anyone have access to the
That's what
recording.
I'm saying. So if you don't do it, it's not happening.
here's my thing. Like, you ran in 29 minutes. I ran in 34. I knew Leslie wasn't there in the morning. I was saving my energy for later so I could be the one that runs up there the fastest.
It's actually really smart.
It's called strategy.
It really is. That's
Very
genius.
strategic.
Listen, I love it. I'm so glad we finally got to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Johnny, for your time
Thank you.
today and
Yeah.
dedication to this podcast. And honestly, your athletic ability and strategic
You know
planning. Way to go.
I'm
Days of
out.
training.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Thank you for being 3 and 3 on
Yes.
these
Yes.
runs.
So proud.
We're
So
going to go
proud.
4 for 4.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Seriously, Johnny, this has been so fun. And do let us know, email us or comment and let us know who you think the real winner is, even though we all know it. But we're going to jump into it. Today's guests are here to talk about considerations for people who are thinking about getting a guide dog right before or during college.
Shadell Richardson has been with Leader Dog for almost a year and a half as a client service coordinator that specializes in the application process. And Alyssa Otis has been with Leader Dog for over 12 years as a guide dog mobility instructor and now the outreach specialist.
Shadell and Alyssa, welcome to the podcast. We'll start off with Shadell. What do you do for client service? Describe what you do.
Well, my main responsibility in client services is to assist an applicant through the application process. I actually do this alongside my colleague, Paola Mesa. We do this together. And the application process starts with the application. We have a few different formats. You can apply online. We have a version that's something you can download off of our website. And then if you need a physical copy, you reach out to client services, and we are more than happy to mail you one of those physical copies. Along with that, we have a physician's report that would have to be completed, a vision evaluation form, a few personal references will be needed, a waiver, and the video, the lovely video that always seems to be the hardest part of the application. But we would require a few interview questions, a home tour, and an established destination route that you complete that's at least 20 minutes. We take those materials to our admissions committee. They review that and they make a decision.
Client services does so much. So Shadell here is giving you a much condensed version because that is the whole application process. But along with all that, Shadell and Paola and sometimes the rest of the team do a fantastic job of assisting through all of these things. So they're in constant contact with clients once they get that first application piece, like she mentioned, and then they're assisting, they're answering questions, they're helping reach out to medical professionals once they get certain waivers and different things like that. And then on top of it, too, they also do the camp applications, which we won't get into because that is a whole other thing. And Christina hates it when I start talking about camp because I won't stop. So we won't do that. But
that is very true.
Shadell and Paola and the rest of client services do a lot of behind the scenes work. And it's always fun, too, when we hear from clients and they're like, oh, you know, my first phone call was to Shadell and she just helped me. And it was like all of a sudden I'm there. And so definitely making a big difference at Leader Dog. And then we have welcoming back Miss Alyssa Otis in studio.
Wow, thank you guys so much. I love being here.
Alyssa's fantastic.
Yes.
She is guide dog mobility instructor and now outreach specialist. And she's also hopped in on the podcast several times as fill-in host and all sorts of stuff. So
yeah, when Leslie's on vacation.
Oh,
Yes.
All the time, ain't it?
okay. I have not missed an episode in a while.
It has been a while. I will give you that.
Been here and those vacations, also work trips, but it's fine. But today we are here to talk about, so this is a topic that actually Shadell and Alyssa and everybody kind of brought to Christina and I, because what happens a lot of times is we get applications for younger adults, if you will, teens sometimes, and they're trying to figure out when is a good time to get a guide dog. A lot of times people are like, I want a guide dog right before I go to college because that's going to help me. And so there's just a lot to consider and things that go into this. So Shadell, I'll start back with you. What are some things that people need to take into consideration when thinking about getting a guide dog kind of like right before going into college?
I think ideally there's a few things to consider. Obviously, to apply for a guide dog, you have to have routes and routines. We require an applicant to have at least 2 to 3 destination routes that they already, they have established, they currently are working. But something to consider when you're going to college is that you're also going to need those same routes and routines at your college campus as well. So my question to them would be, have you even had experience at that campus? Have you navigated that campus independently using your cane? Do you have routes there? Another thing would be time. Guide dogs take a lot of time, just dogs in general. So you have to think about grooming. You have to think about, playtime. They need a reward. They need that kind of to be established. And not every social event that you plan to go to, it's appropriate to have a guide dog. So how do you plan on keeping them entertained during those times? Also, living arrangements. Are you staying off campus in an apartment? Or are you staying in a dorm? Do you navigate stairs to get to this dorm or apartment? Do you take an elevator? Is it the first floor? Just something to consider. And the last thing I would say is support. In most instances, you're coming from physical support, and then when you're moving to campus, you're taking that away. You're not going to have that readily available. So have you considered reaching out to the adapted services that are available to you on campus? And maybe down the road, if you have been approved for guide dog and you need to develop more routes, have you reached out to an O&M instructor in that area? So those are just a few things to consider.
Absolutely. And so that's a lot to think about, when you're making a big transition in life, whether it's going back to school or going to college or high school, whatever it may be, and, having that companion with you. Alyssa, you have worked with so many clients and have done this with so many clients. For the ones who are going through those transitions, what are some things that you work through with them when they're considering, is it right to have my guide dog at this time?
Yeah. So I've worked with a lot of college age young adults before. And like Shadell said, there's definitely considerations that they need to take into account. But one of the things that I really focus on, like Shadell said, is do you know the environment that you're going to be in? Because that's going to help us be so much more successful with a dog if you're able to navigate the environment. So if you haven't been to that college campus yet, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. There's going to be some learning on both your and the dog's part, as opposed to going back home to an environment that perhaps your home wherever your parents are. That environment. And so now you can teach it to the dog. So now you guys are going to be entering into a whole new type of environment where neither of you are fully confident. So one of the things that I really try and work on with people is making sure that they can either learn that environment prior to getting their dog, or understand the fact that even if they go to college and with a dog and they don't know their environment, perhaps they have to take that cane out and learn that environment by themselves before introducing that dog. So really just reminding people that are interested at that age that a dog is not just pick up the harness, tell them forward, find science class, and the dog's not going to be able to do that. So that's one of the biggest hurdles that I think that I see when working with young adults that are ready to be college age.
It's a lot to consider. Timothy, I'm just curious on your perspective. Can you imagine getting a guide dog kind of at those younger years and that responsibility?
That's something that I know a lot of people go through, and I would love to have the guide dog if I went to college and stuff like that with the eyesight I had. And I can imagine that the environment's a lot different than the normal day life. Is that true? That maybe the environment that they're trained on, is it different when they're being trained?
Yeah, so it's not that it's necessarily different. All of our dogs are trained with kind of what we would call a campus travel, which is just those windy sidewalks that have no, clear direction. Your orientation is just completely thrown off. So it can definitely be challenging. One of the things that we do with a guide that helps in those situations is we teach them patterning. And I know, Timothy, you know a lot about patterning. It's one of those tools that's great to use on a college campus. And for those that are unclear or unsure of what patterning is, it's basically teaching your dog to find landmarks along the way on a route. So if you do have to walk through your college campus, yes, those are going to be windy sidewalks, but you can, of course, work with that instructor and then teach your dog how to stop along the way, just kind of as checkpoints.
Mm-hmm. And I know so far we've talked a lot about, the routes and those different things. So this is probably that time of year where you start to get some of those calls in client services of people either, maybe their parents are calling or they're calling wondering, what is the first step, as someone who's wanting to do this, or a parent who's calling about maybe their child who's getting ready for college. What is kind of some of the first considerations, that first step they need to take to maybe prepare if they do want to go the direction of taking that guide dog to school?
Yeah. So the first thing on my end, as far as thinking about getting that dog, is I really want you to think about those next 8 to 10 years of your life, because that's the time that a dog's going to be working. And I don't know about everybody else, but between the age of 18 and 28, I changed quite a bit. So just making sure that you're thinking into the future. This is not just a one-day decision. This is a long-term decision. So I really try and kind of lay out the different things to consider prior to applying. I also, of course, suggest that people go on our website, check out our virtual learning, because there's a lot of good information for prospective clients on there. We have some client testimonials from college age young adults that people can listen to. But I pretty much just try and lay out all of the things that you want to consider. I'm never trying to discourage somebody from applying for a dog. I just want to make sure that it's a well-educated decision. And then on the application side, I'm sure there's a place to start as well.
Yeah, I think knowing someone's day-to-day at their home location or their home environment, and also if they have a plan, what's their day-to-day going to be like on campus? Do they already have their schedule? It would be nice to know if we could build those details off of that. And I think in their own words is probably the best way. So going beyond our application, if someone could provide a couple of paragraphs of what their plan is for their dog, what their schedule is going to look like, have they had that experience on campus already? I think that just goes the extra mile. And I believe that our admissions committee would appreciate the forethought that has already been placed before they even review the file.
I think too, right? Like client services, you think about it, you guys really do have to know so much because you're talking people through all of the different programs to be able to have this knowledge about guide dogs and then specifically this situation about going into a university and campus. How have you been able to learn so much? You've been a Leader Dog team member for a little over a year now?
Yes, July will be a year and a half.
Oh my goodness. It's just so exciting. It feels like it's gone by fast. But
so fast.
What are some of the things that you've done to be able to learn all this? Because you really did bring this topic up of like, you're getting these phone calls and you're having these conversations. You kind of wanted another resource for people. But what have you done? How have you explored to learn all of this in a year?
Well, I have been doing a lot of shadowing within different departments. I genuinely want to know all of this information so I can set a client up for success before they even apply and before they even get to our campus. I want to know as much as I can. So I have been feverishly shadowing every department that will allow me to sit there and pick their brains. So that's how I'm trying to do this.
Which you guys have done a fantastic job. It's wonderful to know that we have empowered and knowledgeable people on your team to be able to answer a lot of these questions. And then also know that you have the resources such as other GDMIs or O&Ms. And just to share my O&M perspective too on the topic, obviously you guys have hit on most of the subjects, but it is so important. And these are things that we do talk about in our O&M program, talking about the best time to get a guide dog. I will say I've heard lots of pros and cons. I've talked to people who have gotten a guide dog before going to that freshman year of college, and they love it because of that really like the social aspect, right? It really does bring people in. People want to know about your dog. You're very well known on campus. Sometimes it makes it a little easier to get those services. But then also on the other end of, it's great if you can go and learn what your life is going to be like. Are you going to be a person that's really going out and going to concerts and clubs and different things like that where it's maybe not appropriate to take a guide dog all the time? Or are you going to have maybe a little bit more calmer and low key and like to hang out in the dorm or whatever it is, kind of learning, your way in college before adding on this big responsibility. But I will say we've heard success stories both ways, and we are here to support in whatever journey people choose to take. The whole idea here is just to really let people know of those considerations and really make sure that you're making the best choice for you.
Yeah, trust me, having a guide dog, you really stick out and people are attracted to the dog. And it can bring more than what you can handle in attention. So, yeah, like you said, you need to really look at it in different prospects.
Well, and something else that not a lot of people think about is that with a dog, you might have to advocate for yourself a little bit more. So, it might be the first guide dog on that college's campus. People may not know that they're allowed everywhere that you're allowed. So just making sure that you have the confidence and knowledge, which of course you work on with Leader Dog team members, and your GDMI, of course, will, go over all of your rights. And we even give you a little card with a QR code that people can scan that takes you right to the ADA website, which has all of the information about your rights with a guide dog. But just being able and feeling confident enough to advocate for yourself and for your dog if need be.
It's also interesting, somebody who's getting a guide dog who's maybe never had a pet before. And there's a lot that goes into it that you might not even think about, right, on the front end. And then also, even if you've had a pet, but it's been your parents' responsibility.
Oh, sure.
Oh my gosh, right? There's so much that goes into having your own animal or dog that you have to be responsible for.
Absolutely. You're studying for your history test, but you also have to get to the store and make sure that you get food for your dog. So it's just kind of balancing those. And again, some people are great at that and thrive on taking care of a dog. But definitely things to consider. You need to make time to brush the dog. You need to make time to play with them because, still a dog at heart, want to play. Also, you need to make sure that you can work them daily. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider, but it can be a really positive addition to somebody who's in college. It's just, again, making sure that you do that work on the front end is going to make the whole team so much more successful.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, too, if you really think about it, because, going into I couldn't imagine myself personally.
Nor could we, Christina. Nor could we.
Myself personally going through the college, I mean, I was involved in so many things, and taking care of a dog on top of it, I don't think I could have done it at that point in my life. So definitely something to consider. Well, the responsibility of taking care of something else during that time, other than yourself.
Christina's still taking care of herself right now. She got here.
Say, she had a hard enough time getting herself here this morning, let alone taking care of a dog.
Another living, breathing thing. It is a lot of work. I am so curious, though, too, thinking about, so patterning to a campus. We always talk about, campuses, right, like you said, the sidewalks make no sense. And
None.
when O&M, we talk about it, it's like they put a sidewalk down wherever there's a path, right?
Yes.
People are always taking the shortcuts. And so navigating that with a cane or with a guide dog can be incredibly challenging. And so can you just walk us through a little bit of how patterning works for those who aren't guide dog users?
So for those that aren't guide dog users, and for those that are, this is a nice refresher. So for example, if I want the dog to find this certain bench that's halfway between the library and my science class. So what I would do is I would do something called back chaining. So I would first take the dog up to the bench. So me as a handler, I need to know where that bench is. That again is where that O&M skills really come in handy here. So I need to find the bench myself as the handler, tap on that bench, tell the dog, good dog, nice job, even though we know they didn't do anything in that moment. We're giving them a cookie. Great job. We're basically making that bench a magnet for that dog. So then we take a few steps back, walk back up to that bench. Good job, buddy, and give them that cookie. Then you take 10 steps backwards, and you just keep doing it over and over again until you've moved far enough away from the bench that that dog is really initiating that pull towards that bench. So for example, if I was trying to go from, let's say, my dorm to science class, I would say, okay, well, there's a bench here. So that's, halfway there, a quarter of the way there. I'm going to have the dog stop there. I'm going to go a little bit further, and now actually there's a trash can. I'm going to pick that as my next stop. So the dog is going to stop me at that bench. I'm going to say, good dog, forward, and we're going to continue on our path. Then the dog's going to check in at that trash can. Good dog. So I, as the handler, know that I'm on the right path. And of course, we also understand that classes change. So maybe the next semester, your classes change and you don't take that route anymore. Well, next time you're walking by that bench, your dog might take you to it. Not necessarily a bad thing, just a thanks, buddy, this isn't where we're heading today. Let's keep moving. So just being able to kind of break down your travel into little segments is a good way that we would use patterning. And we actually take our clients while they're here on campus to universities to practice that skill.
Yeah. And then typically, too, when somebody is getting a guide dog right before college, we usually do a delivery and work on campus.
We will do kind of like a flex with somebody who's going to college soon or maybe hasn't gone in yet. So they will come onto campus for about 2 weeks or so, and then they'll go to that campus environment with their instructor and actually work on breaking down those skills.
Which is so helpful.
It's so helpful. It just sets everybody up for success.
Mm-hmm. So, Shadell, when people are calling and you're getting these questions all the time, do you feel that most clients are kind of like taking a step back and really analyzing to think, well, maybe it isn't the right time? Or do you think they're like, thank you so much for telling me these things. Now I can really have a plan going into this to make sure that I'm successful?
I think they take it as this is good fuel to continue to move forward and make a better decision for themselves and for a potential guide. And they are very grateful that we are giving them these tips to move forward and be successful. And I just wanted to make one more point about a video that you want to make sure that you are sending us a video of a route and routine in both your home area, whether that's at your parents' house and on campus or even an internship. Those are things that the committee will want to review about that. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, that's something people probably don't think about. They're like, oh, I'll do my route at home, but they don't think about, oh, maybe I'll travel to the campus before I'm even there to kind of.
Or even vice versa, right? Like making your routes on campus because you're like, oh, I'm going to live there. But then you think about like Christmas break or holidays or spring break. Like you have to be able to have those routes. And summer, if you're going to go back home for the summer or.
Well, and the more videos of the routes that you do, the better it's going to be for the instructors to match you with a dog. Mm-hmm. I always tell people you can't give us too much information because every bit of information is helpful.
Well, and Timothy, question for you, because I know you travel quite often with Glacier. So how is it like, because that's kind of like going to a college campus as you're establishing a new route. Like, what are some tips and tricks that you would give to someone who is working on establishing that new route?
Well, I mean, I guess you have to plan it out in your head a little bit and know where you need to go from point A to point B. And like say, if you're going to the airport for the first time, there's really nothing you can do. But I use my Victor Reader Trek a lot. So if I'm in unfamiliar territory, I use that quite often. It gives me, like if we're getting ready, there's a street coming up. We can tell by listening, but we also, the Victor Reader Trek, tells you there's a street coming up, so you can prepare for it. But you just I visualize everything in your head, I believe. That's the biggest thing I do.
Yeah. And the Victor Reader Trek, for anybody who doesn't know, is an accessible GPS device created by HumanWare. And it can be very helpful to kind of just prep or let you know what's coming, anticipate the next street and move and things like that. Do you, Timothy, also use some of like the back channeling and patterning when you're at like a new hotel, when you're traveling and different things to, have Glacier lead you right to the door, to the elevator and things like that?
Yeah, well, for Glacier, like say if I go to a hotel room, when I first come to the hotel room, I tap the door and I say, room. That's all I got to say. And from there on, she knows exactly where that room is. It fascinates people when I show that to her. And I just got to get to the right level. But that's the important thing. She can take me to the right room, but we're on the wrong level. Does us no good.
It's honestly a very smart dog.
Yeah, but she knows elevators. She knows escalators. If I say elevator, she finds out everything that I need. So she's got it in her head exactly what I'm looking for. And so you got to know where the front door is. She's always knowing where the front door is. Everywhere I go, she knows where the front door is. And if there's something I need to get out of there fast, I tell her, find the front door. We're out of there. It's amazing. And she's a smart dog. So I put my hands and my life in my dog every day.
Yeah. And you guys have done a lot of work together. So that's a testament to you too, Timothy.
Well, she does most of the work. I just hang on. I couldn't get along in my life without Glacier. It's amazing what these dogs mean to me and what she means to me and other clients out there. These dogs just open up a new world that would not be there if it were not for the dog or the O&M training.
I love that you always throw that in for me, Timothy.
I got to put that plug in.
like, oh gosh, don't forget about the O&M.
Best O&M.
I think that's fantastic. Well, I want to thank you both and Timothy and Johnny, everybody for being here today to, set us straight on what actually happened. So we know who the real winner is and just confirm, I guess. We knew, but let's confirm. And then thank you also to Shadell and Alyssa for joining us and really talking in depth about this topic that seems to be like reoccurring. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much to our listeners for listening to the Taking the Lead podcast. I'm Leslie Hoskins with host Timothy Cunio and Christina Hepner. We hope you enjoyed hearing from Shadell and Alyssa. And Johnny, so sorry. Please join us next time as we continue to dive into the world of blindness.
Yes, and you all know that I actually won. But if you'd like to learn more about applying to our free services at LeaderDog, you can head to leaderdog.org or call us at 888-777-5332. And don't forget, you can reach us at takingthelead@leaderdog.org with any questions or ideas. If you like today's podcast, make sure to hit subscribe and check us out wherever podcasts stream.